friends, welcome back. Today I have a fun, easy crochet tutorial. We haven't done one in a while, so I figured that it was time for a cute little Valentine's one. I have this little duck or chick. I've heard people call him both, so whatever you would like to call him, holding a cute little heart. So this will be a great little gift for any loved ones for Valentine's Day, or if you want to make a bunch for your friends. I think this would be a really fun project. And you can also put a little keychain on top. He's pretty small, so he's perfect keychain size. So if you're doing a market or anything like that, I think this would sell really well. So for this project, I'm using Parfait Chunky, which is a size 6 super bulky chenille yarn. It's a very small size 6. I'd say it's definitely closer to a 5. And I'm using this yellow color for the main body, and this is called Sunshine. And then for the beak and the feet, I am using this orange color, which is called Tangerine. With this yarn, I am using a 5mm crochet hook. You'll also need scissors, a stitch marker to keep track of where you are, some fiber fill stuffing, and then of course a tapestry needle for sewing. And then for the heart, I used this color, I believe this is Pink Lemonade, Parfait Chunky, and with this I'm actually using a 4mm crochet hook. So this is one hook size down from what I'm using for the main body, and that's just to make sure that the heart is small enough for our little duck to hold, as you can see. And then for the eyes, I used 10mm safety eyes, and I'll link those in the video description as well. So those are all of the materials that we need. Let's hop in and make this cute little Valentine's duck. You're going to grab your yellow yarn, and I'm using my 5mm crochet hook, and we are going to start with a slip knot. You could also do a magic circle if you prefer. So you're going to place that on your hook and pull it tight. Next, you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then all into that second chain from the hook, you are going to do 6 single crochets all into that same spot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And go ahead and pull that tight so you close that hole in the middle there, and this is what your circle or magic circle should look like. I just like to do the chain 2 method when I use fluffier yarns over the magic circle. I just find that it works a little bit better for these fuzzy yarns. Next, we are going to do 6 increases. So that will be 2 single crochets into each of the 6 stitches around the circle. So we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, do our first increase, and then move on to the second. Three, 4, 5, and 6. And next, I like to insert a stitch marker to keep track of where we are in the round. For this next round, we are going to do 1 single crochet and 1 increase, and we're going to do that sequence 6 times. So we're going to start with a single crochet, and then moving on to the next stitch, we are going to do an increase, and then do that 5 more times. Next, we are going to do 2 single crochets and 1 increase, and do that sequence 6 times. So we'll do 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then move on to the next stitch and do a single crochet, and then in the next stitch we'll do an increase, and then we'll repeat that 5 more times. Now we are going to single crochet around the circle, so that is 1 single crochet in each of the 24 stitches around the circle. And next we'll do 2 single crochets and 1 decrease and do that sequence 6 times. So you'll do 1 single crochet, move on to the next, do another single crochet, and then for all my creations I like to use the invisible decrease. So to do that we are going to grab the front loop of the next 2 stitches. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to grab your yarn, pull through the first 2, grab your yarn, and pull through the last 2. And now we are going to repeat that 5 more times. Next we will do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease and do that 6 times. So you do 1 single crochet, your invisible decrease, and do that 5 more times. So the portion that we just made is the head, and now we are going to continue to make the body. You are going to do 1 single crochet and 1 increase and do that 6 times. So we'll do 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, which is our first increase, and then do that 5 more times. Next we are going to do 2 single crochets and 1 increase and do that 6 times. You'll do 1, 2, increase, and do that 5 more times. Next we are going to do 2 rounds of single crochets, so that is 1 single crochet in each of the 24 stitches around for 2 rounds. In this next round we are going to start decreasing, but we are also going to create the feet. So go ahead and grab your orange yarn, but we'll continue working with our yellow yarn, and then we'll just change colors whenever we get to the feet. And for the feet I'm going to be using bobble stitches, so I'll show you how to do that when we get there, but they'll be bobble stitches with 5 loops on the hook. So let's start this round out continuing with our yellow body, and we'll do 2 single crochets and then a decrease, and then we'll do that one more time, 2 single crochets and then a decrease, and then we are going to do a single crochet, but we are going to color change to orange next. So go ahead and insert your hook and pull up a loop of the yellow. And now we are going to grab the orange yarn to change colors to make our first foot. So we're going to place this orange yarn right behind. I can hear the snowplow outside. And we are going to pull that through both of those loops there. So in the next stitch we are going to do our first bobble stitch. So you are going to yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, grab your yarn and pull through the first 2 loops. So you'll have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to repeat that same process until you have 5 loops on the hook. So we are going to yarn over, insert our hook back into that same stitch, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, grab your yarn, and pull through the first 2 loops. So now we have 3 on our hook. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, grab your yarn, pull through those 2 loops, and we're going to do it one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook, grab your yarn, pull through, grab your yarn, pull through those 2, and as you can see, you should have 5 loops on the hook now. So you are actually going to grab your yellow yarn and you are going to pull through all 5 of those loops, and there is your bobble stitch. So next we are going to do a decrease, and that's just on the body. And we are going to do another single crochet, but we're going to change colors back to orange for our second foot. So before completing this single crochet, we are going to grab our orange yarn and change colors just like that. And then in the next stitch over, we are going to do our other bobble stitch. So we'll do the same thing that we did before. Yarn over, insert your hook, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, grab your yarn, pull through those first 2, and we're going to repeat that until we have 5 loops on our hook once again. And once you have 5 loops on your hook, you are going to change colors back to yellow. So you're going to grab your yellow yarn and pull through all 5 of those stitches, and then you can pull that bobble stitch tight there. And then next we will do a decrease. This is just on the body there. And then we are going to do 2 single crochets and 1 decrease. And 2 single crochets and 1 decrease. Now we can cut this orange yarn off, so we won't need this anymore for the feet. And then I like to tie these 2 tails together. You don't want to tie it too tight because you want there to be room for you to stuff it, but I like to tie them just to make sure that everything stays in place. And then you can pop these bobble stitches out. Now we are going to insert our safety eyes, now that we know where our feet are. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 between rounds 4 and 5, and I'm using 10mm safety eyes. And I want to make sure that they are centered with the feet here. And there's about 1, 2, 3, there's about 3 visible stitches in between, and you want to make sure that you leave a big enough gap there to make the beak. So we can pop those backs on there to make sure those stay in place. And then we can stuff our little bird. And you can start to stuff it, make sure you stuff the head well, and you can start to stuff the body, and then we'll finish stuffing it before we close it up. So for this next round, we are going to do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease, and do that 6 times. Now let's add a bit more stuffing. And now we are going to do 6 decreases. And you know what? I actually only need 5. You can do 5 or 6 depending on what that opening looks like. You want it to be about that big. And I'm going to add a little bit more stuffing. Okay. Now we can pull up a tail about this long and cut that off. And I am just going to weave this tail through the front loops of all the stitches around this opening here. And once you weave it all the way around, then you can pull that closed. And then we are going to do a knot to make sure everything stays in place. And pull that tight. And we can just weave in that tail. And that is what the little body looks like. Now let's make the beak. To create the beak, you are going to grab your orange yarn and a tapestry needle, and we're going to weave this in. I am going to come in from this stitch over here and weave it up right next to that eye. And we want to weave it about 3 times, right in between the 2 eyes. And after you weave it in the 3rd time, you can go back out this stitch here where you started from. It just looks so silly. And cut those tails off. And then to make sure everything stays in place, you can tie these tails. I like to do them in a double knot. And then weave those back into the head or the body. And that's what it should look like so far. Next, let's add the little tuft of hair on the top, and then we'll do the wings. So you are going to take your crochet hook and insert it into the very top of the head here. You are going to grab your yellow yarn and pull up a loop, and we are going to chain 3. And then you are just going to do a slip stitch back into that same stitch. And then we are going to cut that tail here. And then we are going to tie these 2 tails together to keep everything in place. And I'm going to do a double knot. And then go ahead and weave those into the head. And there's that little tuft of hair on the top. Now let's make the wings. We are going to start with our yellow yarn, and we're going to be making 2 wings. So you are going to do a slip knot. And again, you can do the magic circle if you would like. I'm putting that on my hook and pulling it tight. And next we're going to chain 2. And then all into that second chain from the hook, we are going to do 6 single crochets. And I do get asked the question, why do I do yarn under, yarn over for my starting circle, and everything else I do yarn under, yarn under? I actually like the starting circle to be a little bit bigger, and that's why I do that. Total preference. Do it however you would like. Next, we are going to single crochet around for 2 rounds. So that is 1 single crochet in each of the 6 stitches in the round for 2 rounds. And next we are going to flatten the wings, and we are going to do 3 single crochets through both of these sides to close it up. So you're going to insert your hook in through the first stitch on both of those sides here, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, grab your yarn, and pull through those 2 for your first single crochet. And we're going to repeat the same process 2 more times. And now we are going to fasten off, and make sure that you leave a little bit of a tail so we can sew the wings on. And now you're going to repeat that exact same process to make your second wing. So I'll meet you back here after you've made that. Now that we have made our wings, let's sew them on. So we are going to sew them so they are facing outward, so that our little duck can hold the heart. I am going to use these knitting T-pins. These are great for holding really small amigurumi pieces in place as you sew. So I'm going to pin these in place first, making sure that they are facing forward and he has enough room to hold the little heart. So I would say you want to sew it starting at the end of each of the feet. And next we are going to take our tapestry needle and we are just going to sew this on. So I like to just take a stitch on the body and come up through a stitch on the wing and then just repeat that. And then when I'm finished sewing each wing, I like to tie this in a knot to make sure everything stays in place. And then weave in the tail. Oops. Weave in the tail. And that is what it should look like with the wings sewn on. Now let's make the little heart for him to hold. Now let's make our little heart. I'm going to be using a 4mm crochet hook for this. It's 1 size down from what I was using for the main body. It's just so we can make sure that he can hold it easily. So we are going to start making the heart by making a slip knot. Put that on your hook and pull it tight. Next we are going to chain 2, and then all into the second chain from the hook we are going to do 6 single crochets. And then you can pull that tight to close the opening there. Next we are going to single crochet around. So that will be 1 single crochet in each of the 6 stitches. Let's flip our work, make sure that the correct side is showing. And we are going to make 2 of these to make the 2 sides of the heart. So I'm going to fasten off with this one. So I'm just going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Grab our yarn and pull up a tiny little tail. You don't need a tail for sewing this one. And then I'm just going to weave that tail in. So this is the first half of the heart. Now let's set this aside and make the other. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a slip stitch. Put that on our hook and pull it tight. Next we are going to chain 2. And then in the second chain from the hook, you are going to do 6 single crochets. We're going to pull that tight to close that gap there. And we are going to do 6 single crochets. Flip our work, make sure that the correct side is showing, and don't fasten off with this second piece of the heart because we are going to crochet them together. We're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, but we are going to go backwards, and then we are going to go into any stitch on the first piece that we made. Grab our yarn and pull through both of those to do a single crochet. Next, we are going to do 5 single crochets on this first piece that we made. And then we are going to do 5 single crochets on the other side as well. And this is what the little heart should look like so far. Next, we are going to do 1 single crochet and 1 decrease and do that 4 times. And next we are going to do 4 decreases. And then we are just going to do a slip stitch, fasten off, and you want to tug on the end to make sure that the heart has a point, and weave in this tail. And then you can shape the heart to make sure that everything is uniform. You can pinch the bottom there, and there is the tiny little heart. There are a few ways that you can attach this heart. You can take some pink acrylic worsted weight yarn and you can tie each side of the heart to each wing so that the little duck is holding it. I really find that the easiest way to attach it, and you don't have to do this if you don't prefer it, is using fabric glue. If you prefer not to and you prefer to sew it on, you can absolutely do that, but just a really simple way is just to add a little bit of fabric glue to each wing. And I like to use Fabri-Tac. It works really well. And then we are just going to place the little heart there, and you want to hold this for, I'd say, about a minute until the glue dries. And you don't have to use size 4 yarn if you are sewing it on. You can use the regular yarn that you have been using to just tie each side of the heart to each wing. But there is our cute little Valentine's bird. I hope you enjoyed making him. And if you're making this as a little gift for someone, let me know who you're making it for down in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this easy little tutorial. Please let me know what type of tutorial you'd like to see next. And also if you'd like to give my other little Valentine's pattern a go, I have a free pattern on my blog for this little Valentine's box with a little duck hidden inside. So you can follow along on that free pattern. I'll link that in the video description. So if you don't already, give me a follow over on Instagram. I post all of my new fun and projects over there. And if you'd like to join us over on Patreon, you get free patterns every month, as well as lots of fun behind the scenes. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Happy Valentine's Day, and we'll see you again real soon.